Why Trump can't afford to be tough on India anymore is not just a political argument, it is a reflection of how the world has shifted, how power has transformed, and how the rules of global dominance have been rewritten. Once upon a time, the United States believed it could dictate terms to every nation. It believed its economic weight, its military might, and its global influence were unshakable. But today, when we talk about India, we are not talking about a submissive nation waiting for instructions. We are talking about a rising force, a nation of over 1 billion people with unstoppable ambition, unmatched resilience, and an economy that is growing like a raging engine. And no matter how strong Trump's words might sound, no matter how tough his stance might appear, the reality is this: he cannot afford to be tough on India anymore, because India is no longer a country you can pressure. It is a country you must respect. Think about what strength really is. Strength is not in shouting, it is not in threats, it is not in posturing. Real strength is in endurance, in the ability to rise every single time you are pushed down. India has faced centuries of colonization, decades of poverty, years of being underestimated, and still it has risen. It has risen through technology, through trade, through the power of its people. A nation that sends rockets into space on a fraction of NASA's budget, a nation that builds digital infrastructure at lightning speed, a nation that produces world-class engineers, doctors, and entrepreneurs by the millions. That is not a nation you can intimidate. That is a nation you must align with. That is why Trump, no matter how much he loves to project toughness, cannot afford to be tough on India anymore. When you look at the modern battlefield of power, it is not just about bombs and tanks anymore. It is about markets, about data, about influence. It is about who controls the future of technology, who dominates the supply chains, who has the largest consumer base. And here India stands like a giant. Over 600 million young people, more than the population of the United States and Europe combined, ready to work, ready to consume, ready to innovate. Do you think any president, even one who thrives on bold and aggressive rhetoric, can afford to alienate a market like this? The answer is simple: no. You cannot be tough on the very partner whose cooperation you need to counterbalance China, to stabilize Asia, to keep your own corporations thriving. Trump may have built his reputation on being the tough negotiator, the man who never backs down, but when it comes to India, the rules are different. He has to bend because India has become unbendable. And let us not forget, the world is no longer unipolar. The United States is powerful, yes, but it is not almighty. China is rising, Russia is asserting itself, Europe is charting its own path, and the global south is demanding respect. In this world, allies matter more than ever, and India is not just another ally, it is the ally. It is the democratic counterweight to authoritarian regimes, it is the voice of the developing world, it is the bridge between East and West. For Trump to try to bully India would be like trying to punch a wall made of steel. The impact will only hurt your own hand. He knows it, his advisors know it, the entire world knows it. That is why, no matter how much he loves to act tough, when it comes to India, he cannot afford that act anymore. Consider energy. America needs markets for its oil, its gas, its weapons. India buys them. Consider technology. Silicon Valley thrives on Indian talent, from CEO to coders, from visionaries to builders. Consider defense. The Indo-Pacific strategy is impossible without India standing strong in the center of it. If Trump dares to push India away, he risks pushing India closer to those who would love to embrace it, nations like Russia, nations like China, and that is a risk no American president can afford. It is not about ego anymore, it is about survival in a world where influence is shifting rapidly. India is no longer the pawn on the chessboard, it is the queen, and queens don't bow to kings. They move in every direction with power. You see, toughness works only when the other side is weaker. But when the other side is rising, when the other side has leverage, when the other side has options, toughness becomes weakness. Trump cannot sanction India the way America sanctions others, because India is not isolated. It is too interconnected, too essential. He cannot lecture India on democracy, because India is the world's largest democracy. He cannot threaten India with trade wars because American companies need India more than India needs them. Every iPhone sold, every software update coded, every medical innovation tested, there is India's contribution at its core. So when Trump looks across the table, he doesn't see a submissive negotiator. He sees a partner who has the leverage to walk away. That is why he cannot afford to be tough on India anymore. Let's talk about psychology. Trump's style has always been about intimidation, about saying the boldest thing in the room, about commanding attention. But intimidation only works when the other party is insecure. India today is not insecure. It is confident. It is proud. It is led by a leadership that is unapologetic about its interests. It does not need validation. It does not crave approval. It does not fear isolation. This confidence disarms the very weapon Trump uses. You cannot intimidate someone who has already endured the worst and come out stronger. You cannot scare someone who has nothing to lose and everything to gain. That is India, and that is why Trump's old playbook will not work here. Now, imagine the future. The next decade will decide who shapes the technologies of artificial intelligence, of space, of renewable energy. Whoever dominates these will dominate the century. Can America do it alone? No. It needs partners who share its vision, its values, its drive. India is that partner. Trump knows it, even if he doesn't say it openly. He can rant about trade deficits. He can complain about tariffs. But at the end of the day, he knows the truth. Without India, America's future in Asia is crippled. Without India, America's tech giants lose their edge. Without India, America's attempt to balance China collapses. So, no matter how much his pride pushes him to appear tough, his survival instincts will pull him back. That is the paradox he cannot escape. The beauty of India's rise is that it did not happen overnight. It has been decades in the making. From software outsourcing to space missions, from pharmaceutical exports to digital revolutions, India has built brick by brick, step by step. And that kind of rise cannot be dismissed, cannot be undone by sanctions or pressure. It is permanent, it is rooted, it is unstoppable. That is why Trump must recalibrate. He cannot afford to treat India like just another nation in negotiation. He must treat it like the partner without whom America's vision falls apart. And deep down he knows this. That is why his rhetoric may sound fiery, but his actions will always bend toward cooperation. Look around at the symbolism. When Indian leaders visit the United States, stadiums fill with cheering crowds. When American companies enter India, they see limitless opportunity. When Indian students flood American universities, they bring not just tuition money, but the future of innovation. This is not a one-sided dependency, it is mutual, and in mutuality, toughness becomes obsolete. Trump cannot afford to risk losing that. He cannot afford to risk alienating a nation whose people are embedded in the very fabric of American progress. And this is not just about economics or politics, it is about respect. The world has shifted to a place where nations demand respect, not just deals. India's rise has taught it one thing: never again will it bow, never again will it be dictated to. It will partner, yes, it will negotiate, yes, but it will never submit, and that is what Trump must face. He cannot afford to be tough on India, because toughness would be seen as disrespect, and disrespect will only backfire. The more he tries to pressure, the more India will resist. The more he tries to dominate, the more India will assert. And in that clash, it is not India that risks losing, it is America. So why can't Trump afford to be tough on India anymore? Because toughness is a relic of a time when America held all the cards. That time is gone. Now the cards are spread across the table, and India holds more than a few aces. Trump may be bold, but boldness without strategy is just noise. And when it comes to India, the strategy is clear: align, respect, cooperate. He knows it, the world knows it, and India knows it. That is the reality he cannot escape. And as India continues to grow, as its voice gets louder, as its influence stretches from Silicon Valley to the Indian Ocean, from the United Nations to outer space, that reality will only become more undeniable. Trump may want to project toughness, but when he looks at India, he sees the mirror of the future, and in that mirror he knows one truth: toughness has no place here, only partnership does. That is why he cannot afford to be tough on India anymore. Respect and partnership are not just words, they are the foundation of true power in the modern world. They are the tools that build lasting influence, the instruments that create alliances stronger than armies, and the strategies that allow nations to shape the future without firing a single shot. When a country chooses respect over intimidation, when it chooses dialogue over threats, it sets itself on a path of unstoppable influence. Intimidation may get temporary compliance, it may force short-term concessions, but respect and partnership create loyalty, trust, and shared vision. That is why, when it comes to dealing with India, any leader who hopes to wield real influence must understand that intimidation is a relic of the past, and that true power comes from respect and partnership. Consider India itself. For centuries, this nation has been underestimated, undervalued, and misjudged. Empires came and went, armies tried to conquer, and yet India endured. The secret to its resilience was never brute force. It was its ability to adapt, to build networks, to foster relationships that endure beyond conflict. India understands instinctively that true strength lies not in overpowering others, but in creating bonds, in forging partnerships, and in commanding respect through its actions, its values, and its culture. When a nation like India meets intimidation, it does not bend, it stands taller, it strategizes, and it seeks partners who will acknowledge its worth. And that is exactly why respect, not fear, is the key to meaningful influence with India. Now, imagine a world where every negotiation, every alliance, every global initiative is driven by respect and partnership. Nations would engage with one another not from a place of dominance, but from a place of shared purpose. A leader who understands this wields influence far greater than one who relies on threats or coercion. When respect is the currency, alliances are strong, trade flourishes, technology advances, and global stability grows. Conversely, when intimidation is used, the effects are temporary, brittle, and often counterproductive. People comply not because they admire or trust the leader, but because they fear consequences, and fear is fleeting. Respect, on the other hand, is permanent. It builds relationships, and it multiplies influence exponentially. For a president dealing with a rising power like India, this lesson is critical. America may have historically relied on its economic and military dominance to shape outcomes, but the world has changed. The days of unilateral power are gone. India has its own ambitions, its own capabilities, and its own global vision. To influence India effectively, one must approach it with respect, acknowledge its achievements, and seek partnership in areas of mutual interest. The results are transformative. Trade agreements become more beneficial, defense cooperation becomes more strategic, and cultural and technological exchanges deepen. The ability to influence India in a meaningful way is not through threats or posturing. It is through respect and collaboration, and those who fail to recognize this are destined to encounter resistance rather than compliance. Respect creates a multiplier effect. When one nation treats another with genuine respect, it sets a tone that resonates across governments, corporations, and populations. Leaders begin to trust each other, negotiations move faster, and solutions emerge more efficiently. People are more willing to invest, to collaborate, and to innovate when they feel valued rather than coerced. In the context of U.S.-India relations, this is especially critical. India is not just a market, it is a strategic partner in technology, defense, energy, and global governance. Every initiative that is approached with respect strengthens the bonds, while every act of intimidation weakens trust and sows doubt. A single act of disrespect can undo years of careful diplomacy, but consistent respect builds a network of influence that cannot be shaken. Consider the lessons of history. Nations that have relied on intimidation often achieve only short-term gains. They may extract concessions, they may temporarily dominate negotiations, but they also create resentment, mistrust, and eventual resistance. The United States has seen this pattern before in various regions, and India, with its long history of resilience and self-reliance, will not respond to bullying. Attempts to intimidate are met with calm confidence and strategic countermeasures. Conversely, leaders who approach India with respect, who recognize its role in global affairs, and who seek genuine partnership, find doors open to them that intimidation could never unlock. Agreements are smoother, collaboration is deeper, and influence becomes more durable. This is not theory, it is reality proven by decades of international diplomacy. Partnership amplifies influence in a way intimidation never can. When two nations see each other as equals, when they engage in shared goals and collaborative ventures, the impact is enormous. In trade, both nations benefit. In defense, both nations grow stronger. In technology, both nations innovate faster. In culture, both nations enrich their people. Influence emerges naturally from partnership because it is rooted in trust, mutual respect, and shared vision. A president who understands this, who prioritizes partnership over pressure, can achieve far more than any who rely on fear tactics. India responds to respect with cooperation, it responds to partnership with loyalty, and it responds to vision with bold initiatives. Intimidation, by contrast, yields only compliance or defiance, neither of which creates lasting influence. Let's take the example of economic influence. India's economy is one of the fastest growing in the world, with a vast population, booming technology sector, and increasing global footprint. The opportunities for American business are enormous, but they cannot be fully realized without mutual trust. Negotiations based on respect create agreements that both sides embrace, where investment flows freely and innovation is shared. Threats, tariffs, or aggressive posturing may extract temporary concessions, but they also introduce uncertainty and fear, which stifle long-term collaboration. Respect and partnership, however, generate stability, confidence, and shared growth, which is influence in action. In defense and global strategy, the principle is the same. India occupies a critical position in the Indo-Pacific region, a hub of trade, security, and regional stability. The U.S. seeks to counterbalance other powers, and India's cooperation is essential. A strategy based on intimidation risks pushing India toward alternatives, undermining long-term strategic goals. A strategy based on respect and partnership, however, builds trust, aligns objectives, and ensures that both nations move together toward shared security interests. Influence achieved through collaboration is durable. Influence achieved through fear is fleeting. Culturally and socially, respect fosters people-to-people ties that extend beyond governments. When a nation treats India with dignity and acknowledges its contributions to science, arts, and society, it strengthens bonds that last generations. Students, entrepreneurs, scientists, and artists all respond to respect with engagement. Intimidation might get immediate attention, but it does not create long-term cultural influence. Respect creates networks of collaboration, admiration, and shared ambition. It is a tool of influence that is subtle but unstoppable. Technology and innovation further illustrate the power of partnership over intimidation. Indian talent drives global tech innovation, from software to startups to artificial intelligence. Respectful collaboration unlocks this potential. Shared ventures, joint research, and cooperative development projects multiply influence. Threats or aggressive demands, by contrast, can alienate the very people whose talent and creativity are most needed. Influence grows where there is mutual respect and shared purpose, not where there is coercion or intimidation. Diplomacy itself is a reflection of this principle. A nation that relies on respect and partnership builds alliances that endure through leadership changes, economic shifts, and global crises. Alliances built on intimidation are fragile, dependent on fear rather than commitment. The United States' influence over India is strongest when it is based on recognition, dialogue, and shared objectives. Respect transforms relationships from transactional to transformational, creating influence that persists even under the most challenging circumstances. India, as a partner, demonstrates the extraordinary value of influence built on respect. It engages with nations that recognize its importance, that treat its sovereignty with dignity, and that pursue collaboration over domination. It resists those who attempt to bully or coerce. Every leader who understands this principle finds that influence grows exponentially when grounded in mutual respect. Every leader who ignores it discovers that power gained through intimidation is fragile and short-lived. When it comes to global challenges, climate change, cybersecurity, health crises, trade disputes, and strategic defense, the principle of respect and partnership is even more critical. These challenges cannot be solved unilaterally. They require cooperation, trust, and shared investment. Leaders who rely on intimidation limit their ability to participate meaningfully in these global solutions. Leaders who cultivate respect unlock pathways to leadership that extend far beyond their immediate term in office. Influence in the modern era is earned through partnership, not imposed through fear, and the example of India makes this abundantly clear. Respect allows leaders to inspire rather than coerce. Influence achieved through inspiration is permanent. Influence achieved through coercion is temporary. When a nation like the United States treats India with respect, it creates an environment in which ideas flow, investments thrive, security cooperation deepens, and global initiatives succeed. The power of respect is not passive. It is active, strategic, and transformative. It multiplies every action, amplifies every negotiation, and strengthens every alliance. Intimidation can only ever suppress, never empower. Partnership magnifies influence through reciprocity. When two nations share goals and collaborate openly, each benefits from the other's strengths. India's strategic position, technological prowess, and growing economy complement American global ambitions. By respecting India as a partner, influence is no longer a zero-sum game, it becomes a force multiplier. Every decision made together, every project initiated jointly, every policy harmonized between the two nations extends influence in ways intimidation cannot replicate. Respect and partnership also create resilience. Alliances built on fear are vulnerable. A change in leadership or circumstance can dissolve them instantly. Alliances built on respect endure through challenges, disagreements, and crises. Influence grounded in partnership is self-reinforcing. The more trust is built, the more cooperation grows, and the stronger the influence becomes. Intimidation erodes trust, partnership strengthens it. The choice is simple for any nation seeking real global power. The principle applies to every sphere: economic, political, defense, technological, cultural, and environmental. Respect and partnership are the engines of influence, the mechanisms through which global leadership is exercised effectively in the 21st century. India, with its history, its capabilities, and its strategic importance, demonstrates this principle perfectly. A nation that approaches India with respect gains not just a partner, but a multiplier of its own influence. A nation that tries to intimidate India risks isolation, conflict, and loss of credibility. Every interaction, every negotiation, every alliance decision must consider this principle. Influence is not about dominating, it is about empowering, collaborating, and co-creating solutions. When a leader approaches India with genuine respect, listens to its perspective, values its contributions, and seeks mutual gain, influence grows naturally. It does not need to be forced, it does not need to be threatened, it does not require bluster. Influence flows from the recognition of value, from the alignment of purpose, and from the establishment of trust. This is why the nations that succeed in shaping global outcomes are those that embrace respect and partnership. They understand that intimidation may work in the short term, but it never builds the long-term influence needed to navigate a complex, interconnected, and multipolar world. India exemplifies this truth, showing that influence earned through respect is unbreakable, enduring, and far more effective than influence extracted through fear.